Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alyssa Corum and Ed Carson here. The major indexes finished slightly lower today, but we've seen impressive gains as of late. We're going to break down the action for the major indexes, and we have two stocks that presented aggressive entries today and a big cap tech name that held strong, Ed.
That's right, Ali. Google stock, along with some of these other tech titans, holding in buy range after strong moves on Monday. Meanwhile, we have C Limited and Chipotle making some nice moves.
Okay, great. First, a look at the major indexes. We're going to run through all of them here, but here is the NASDAQ Composite, which finished slightly lower on the day at ever so slightly. The S&P 500 down 0.1%. The Dow taking the hardest hit today, it looks like, down 0.3%. So what do you make of the day's action?
You know, obviously, it's always nice to see stocks go up and up and up, but, you know, the NASDAQ has been up 1.5% for the last three sessions. I mean, or at least 1.5%. The S&P had 1% gains in the prior two sessions. You know, the NASDAQ's gotten over those March highs. The S&P 500 is at record highs. The Dow's at record highs. So there's a lot of reasons. You know, this was nice action here. You know, today we can consolidate it for a few days. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Some more handles would form, take a breath, and then maybe move on again. So today didn't mean a whole lot, but it meant that what was going on before is still intact.
That's exactly right. We looked at the S&P 500. We'll also just take a quick look at the Dow here. You mentioned holding near highs, and IWM, which tracks the Russell 2000, still above that key 50-day line after undercutting it in a pretty big way relatively recently, but back above that level now. So let's take a look at some individual names that we tracked the breakouts yesterday for Google parent Alphabet, as well as Microsoft in that FANG group. So very strong gains over the last couple of sessions. And Google did fall slightly today, but again, impressive to see just such a minimal loss after a string of very strong gains.
Yeah, and we've seen this generally with breakouts. I mean, Google maybe even more so because it's just such a tiny drop, but a lot of stocks had run up, broken out, and so they were down 0.5%, 1%, sometimes 2%. But when they're breaking out like this, and this one often offered some early entries even before Monday's breakout, so there were opportunities to get into this stock and, you know, join in on this, and it's holding those gains, and that's generally what we're seeing. The market, the index has held gains. The breakouts generally have been holding gains. So that's a positive action for investors.
That's right. And with Google still being in this 5% buy range and only 6% above the 10-week line, seems like it's still pretty actionable at these levels. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly true. And so, yeah, and if you pause longer, it would allow indexes to catch up even more. So there would, or to form another consolidation or high handle. So, you know, this is positive. It's providing a number of opportunities even now to get into this stock.
All right. And let's look at C Limited, which had a huge run in 2020. It's been taking a break over the last number of weeks as it consolidates. But hey, Ed, for stocks that make big moves, the silver lining when you see a downdraft like this is it allows the stock to set up a new proper entry. So having that rest for C Limited seems like it could be a good thing here. And today presenting an entry point for more aggressive investors.
It's definitely aggressive. I mean, this is the longest consolidation it's had pretty much since the crash because it had gone on and on. These little 4-week consolidations, little pauses at the 10-week line. But we finally have a real base. It's been quite a while. Actually, it didn't even really have, I guess we've probably had a base, you'd say, after the crash. So it's nice to have that. But yeah, today it got above the 10-week line, got above the 50-day line. You could probably draw an aggressive entry, especially on a daily chart. One of the nice things about it beyond C Limited is that this is sort of we're starting to see signs that some of these speculative growth names, the highly valued names, are coming back. You know, there's plenty of other sectors that are doing fine, and those are still doing well. But you could buy it here, but you're seeing that here. This is one of those that's above the 50-day line. There's a few others, 10x Genomics, there's Square. I mean, but even the ones that are further down, like Tesla, they're showing some signs of life. And, it's nice to have that kind of, like off the bottom. So, to have that participation, because that's where you can get some really huge gains. Not saying that they're all buys right now. This is definitely
Mhm.
aggressive, but it would be nice to add that extra bit of spice. Like we have some hearty meals out there, but get a little bit of that sriracha into your portfolio is not such a bad idea.
And with it now back above that 50-day line, you have a clear level at which to get out, perhaps. What do you think about how you should be setting your line in the sand with something like this?
I think that's exactly right. And you're always talking about you needing an exit strategy, and you don't want to give yourself any excuses. If this thing falls decisively below the 50-day line and you bought it here, you should probably be getting out, because it's like at that point that's a good line in the sand. So yeah, always be thinking about that, especially when you take these aggressive entries, because they can work against you.
Yeah, and we've said a number of times on IBD Live, if you do go for these more aggressive entries and get shaken out, you can't be afraid to get back in if it sets up again. And that's kind of is the nature of the game if you're playing some of these more aggressive entries. So we'll have to see how it shakes out for C Limited. But we also want to take a look at kind of similar action ish in Chipotle, in that it too was able to retake its 50-day line today with a gain of about 2.7%. What do you think of this base structure here, Ed?
Well, it had a really big sell-off, but most of it was sort of contained pretty close to the 50-day line. And, it like C Limited, it's breaking a downtrend, but the downtrend isn't nearly as steep. I mean, that was
Exactly.
it's nice to have a little less steep downtrend. I guess if you wanted to be a little more patient, but somewhere in between, there's the area around 1511 to get above those levels, and sort of, but this is an aggressive entry you can join in. One reason to take an aggressive entry now is that it has earnings in 2 weeks. So if you have any hope of expecting, like to get a cushion, you might need to get into it now, because, by the time it gets up to the buy point and breaks out, it might be getting close to the earnings, but doesn't mean you'll develop a cushion. This stock could go sideways for 2 weeks, and then you have a real decision to make. Do you really want to hold into earnings with little or no gain? But it's nice to see this action. This is, because this has been one, you see the growth returning. So it'll be interesting to see as those
Exactly.
stores reopen. Yeah, boy, that's a pretty nice gain to be expecting. And that's well above. I think that's something David Ryan has been saying when he's been on IBD Live. Look for the stocks. Are they getting better than the earnings from the prior year? And obviously Chipotle was in rebound mode. You can see all those prior years that it was recovering from those
Sure.
sicknesses and those illnesses, but it's even above the 2015. So we're looking at record profits this year for a reopening play. So that's something I think that, investors looking for that rebound should be looking at.
Yeah, some great perspective there, Ed. And Chipotle has made a nice move, a very impressive move off of the coronavirus crash lows. But I think with that outlook, potentially it still has some room left. So we'll have to see if the stock can see any momentum heading into earnings, and depending on where it's at right ahead of the report, maybe the earnings could fuel further upside. But for now, we'll keep Chipotle on our radar. Thanks so much, Ed. We have a lot going on this week, but honestly, Ed, when do we never have a lot going on? I feel like we always have something, whether it's a leaderboard scorecard, which is today in 20 minutes from now, to be precise. So if you're a leaderboard subscriber, head on over to leaderboard.investors.com. Swing Trader Scorecard, our monthly webinar, is happening on Thursday this month. So be aware of that. And we have upcoming webinars next week, special guests on IBD Live. John Najarian's going to be on. It's just a busy time, isn't it, Ed?
It is, but we always try to find ways. There's always so much to